Good morning, Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Friday, August 3rd, 2012. And the tropics certainly very busy as we have the first 3 days of the month already in the books, and things are very, very busy out there. We now have Invest Area 90L off the coast of Africa. I think you can tell just by looking at this pretty well-defined tropical wave. This is going to have to be watched as it moves off to the west over time. I'll show you why I believe it'll do so. Here is, of course, Ernesto, and its forecast track currently aimed generally towards the Yucatan Peninsula through the Caribbean Sea. And then we have this area off the coast of Florida that'll also have to be monitored. A very busy time indeed. Looking at the most recent visible satellite shot, we see Ernesto here in the Windward and Leeward Islands passing through very rapidly. A west movement at 24 miles per hour as strong Bermuda high pressure is situated to the north, pushing this along at a very rapid pace. And that is not healthy for the tropical system. As I mentioned yesterday, it's kind of like being pushed on your shoulders if you're walking along and somebody comes from behind you and pushes you on the top part of your body and you fall over. Well, the same type of thing with one of these tropical cyclones. If the wind is going faster in one level of the atmosphere than it is in the lower levels, for example, then you have sort of a tilted system. It's trying to draw three dimensions here. I think you understand what I'm saying. And until it slows down, it's not going to organize very well at all. Here is the system over the Bahamas that bears watching as it moves off to the northwest over time. You folks along the Florida and Georgia coast want to watch this. If nothing else, squally weather. So if you have boating plans this weekend, this could affect you. And just coming into the scene here in the far eastern Atlantic is Invest Area 90L. Just a real quick, why do they call it 90L or 99L, etc.? Well, the Hurricane Center designates these areas of investigation like this one with a number 90 through 99, and then they have the letter L for Atlantic. And if it was in the Eastern Pacific, same thing, 90 through 99, and the letter E for Eastern Pacific. And it's just the way things are to designate more resources to these systems. If this gets better organized, it would be 91L, and satellite resources, recon maybe, computer modeling would all be allocated to keep up with this. It's just a way to keep up with what's going on with these areas of suspect weather. Looking closer at Ernesto, a little bit better organized than it was this time yesterday, but you still see blobs of convection as opposed to bands of convection. And that is going to be the telltale sign that it's not strengthening very much. Nonetheless, it's really hard to see the islands on here. There's St. Lucia right there. They did get a wind gust to 63 miles per hour as some of these convective bursts moved through. And I was mentioning on the blog yesterday that a convectively challenged system, one that does not have a lot of deep thunderstorm activity, will not bring the winds down to the surface as efficiently, but you get one of these convective cells popping right over you as it rotates through, then yes, in those heavy rain bands, you can get some pretty strong winds. And the 5 a.m. discussion was noting that, from the Hurricane Center, that the aircraft was reporting that the winds in Ernesto here were not mixing down to the surface very well. Easy to understand that when you see something that is not very convectively active. Now there is a little bit of a curvature to the banded cloud cover here. Not the best I've ever seen for sure, and a lot of that has to do with, yes, some dry air coming in here, and it's pretty close to South America, a very large source of dry air as compared to the Caribbean Sea. Fairly decent outflow. You know, it's okay, the air coming out of the system at the top layers of the atmosphere, but it is struggling. It's moving way too fast for its own good, and it's going to have to slow down. One thing going for it, as it moves through the Caribbean here, Oh wow, I mean just increasing tropical cyclone heat potential. That is to say that the water is warm and it's also deep. So the 80-degree line goes way, way down into the ocean, especially over here in the Northwest Caribbean Sea. If it can survive and not completely fall apart and or go on a more westerly track into Central America, where there's some heat content here, but if it gets up into the Northwest Caribbean Sea, as the current forecast track indicates, the highest heat content in the entire Western Hemisphere is located in its path. So that is why we're going to need to watch this very closely. Of course, once it's done passing through the windwards and leewards here, the next area of concern will be Jamaica and then possibly the Cayman Islands, unless it weakens so much that it gets pushed more on a westward track. And I will explain why that is on a later video blog. I want to use these as educational tools as much as possible, as well as something just to keep you up to date on what's going on in the tropics. Curiously, the GFDL, one of the many computer models out there, it shows that Ernesto in 126 hours would be at 24.8 and 86, moving in a heading of 318 degrees. So moving generally northwest at that point at about 11, 12 miles per hour, something like that. If we look at some of the other model guidance, there's a bunch of them, like I said. You have the beta and advection models, the L-bar model, but I'm mainly on this one looking at the SHIPS model here, the Statistical Intensity Hurricane Prediction, Statistical Hurricane Intensity Predictor, something like that. And it shows 45 knots initial conditions with 1,002 millibars, and then it does, in 72 hours here, make Ernesto a hurricane. And then finally 84 knots, 86 knots. This would be Category 2 hurricane strength at days 4 and 5. So the SHIPS model, the SHIPS diagnostics, that Statistical Hurricane Intensity Prediction Scheme model, not sensing hostile conditions, especially after about 48 hours. Looking at the GFDL in a graphical output, where is that 24 and 86? Well, right there in the southeast Gulf of Mexico. Not too far off the southwest coast of Florida. There's the northwest corner of Cuba right there as a close-up shot. But GFDL not really strengthening it much. The 35-meter wind, or I'm sorry, is that 35 feet, so 10 meters up, only 73 knots. I say only, at least that's better than 100 knots, and a pressure of 977 millibars, situated in the southeast Gulf. This is pretty close to where the Hurricane Center's forecast track would be, right there, not too far off, whereas the GFS, I'm going to show you in a minute, kind of kills it off and tries to send it into this area. Looking at the HWRF model, another computer model, the hurricane version of the Weather Research Forecast model, it too almost in the same spot as the GFDL. So that's interesting that these two models pretty much align with each other, but look how small it is. See that? Very, very small system in the model field. That's interesting. Small systems can fluctuate very rapidly in intensity. Look at the big, sprawling high pressure, though, over the Atlantic Ocean. And here is 90L coming across the Atlantic and ending up, according to the HWRF model, in the same spot that Ernesto is in right now. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. All right, looking at the GFS in particular, this is the 850 millibar chart, or 5,000 feet in the atmosphere, valid tomorrow morning around 2 a.m. Here's Ernesto, fairly decent vorticity and a shape to it. Here's another little piece of energy or vorticity off the coast of Florida. As I was mentioning, anybody with interest in this area at least want to make sure they are aware of what's going on with that system. If it does not develop into a tropical cyclone, which it has a very low chance of doing, it'll still bring squally weather, gusty winds, showers, and thunderstorms to the offshore waters of the Bahamas and, of course, Florida and southern Georgia. 48 hours out, we start to see sort of a fragmentation of Ernesto here. different pieces of energy all around it. Not a healthy sign. And you see up here, this energy over the Bahamas kind of dies out over Florida. Not much of a concern there. Finally, at day 3, the GFS really taking a hit on Ernesto here. Only a curved signature in the wind field here, showing that it opens up into a wave. You see that? We lose, if we go back a couple of frames, we lose that rounded closed low, and by 72 hours the GFS kills it off and really opens it up into a tropical wave again. So a sharp tropical wave instead of a closed low pressure area. And then look out here, big high pressure sitting over the western Atlantic as 90L is waiting somewhere over in this direction to come into the scene. If we broaden the picture out and look at day 5, I believe that's what I've done here. I did want to point out very, very solid area of high pressure here over the Atlantic, right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So as 90L sits out here, it should just march generally westward over the next few days, and I think that's why the H-Wharf is showing it here in the Windward Islands by day 5. Very, very strong central Atlantic ridge sending these systems westward, not curving out to sea this year like we saw over the last 3 years. So there you go. About a 12-minute recording today to give you the latest on what's going on. Did not expect things to be this busy in the first 3 days of August, but they are. So we'll do our best to keep you up to date. All right? I will keep posting little tidbits of info on Twitter. And remember, that shows up right in the app. You can check either the home screen or the social feed. And, of course, I'll post some things on Facebook as well. And another video update tomorrow. All right? Again, I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. You know that. Thanks for watching, and I'll have another video blog tomorrow.